In this video, we're going to go through a really simple, easy, and quick tactic to help you grow your prospective user base leading up to the launch of your no-code app. Now, make sure you stick around until the end because this is a tactic I see a lot of people overlooking, and it leads them to sacrificing dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of prospective early users for their apps. So this is a really easy tactic to implement, and I want to make sure you get this right leading up to your launch. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help non-technical entrepreneurs build custom apps so they can launch their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses all without coding, no technical background required. All right, let's jump over to the whiteboard here. I want to lay out a scenario that happens when you're going from your idea stage to your very first launch. And then we're going to talk about this really easy tactic that you can start implementing. So if you look here on the screen, these series of expanding circles represent the different soft launches that you'll go through with your application. So let's say right down here in the very initial circle, you have your app idea. And this is a stage where you're going through the validation process. So essentially, you are having conversations with your prospective market. Maybe you're having conversations with coworkers, colleagues, industry contacts, whatever it may be. You're essentially validating your idea to the point where you feel confident in moving forward in building the first version of the product so that you can then validate the product. So you have these conversations down here, and then you come into your version 1 development. So this is where you're creating an MVP, a minimum viable product, a pilot app. It's something that you're testing on a smaller scale to see how it is applied in users' processes and to see how and if it's viable on a larger scale. And so when you launch your version 1 app, it's a very soft launch. You'll bring on initial users to help you validate the product. So really, again, just to learn how the product is applied, how it helps with users' processes, how it provides the desired outcome, or how it doesn't, and how you can make it better. And then from there, you'll go into your version 2 launch. So this is more of a rollout launch where you are potentially automating your onboarding, or you're allowing for onboarding at scale, or maybe you are opening up the app to a higher volume of users. Maybe you're removing yourself from some of the processes a little bit. So this is, again, it's where you start to roll out the app, make it more widely available, whether that is externally or even within your own company with your employees, for example. And this is where you're looking at adoption. This is really when you're doing your initial rounds of beta testing, or you're moving beyond those rounds, and you're really just making sure that users can adopt your app. And from there, you kind of go into version 3 plus, which is where you are now fully expanding the app. So with your idea stage, you're starting out by just making sure there's a need for the solution that you have in mind. In the V1 stage, you're making sure that your product, the product that you've developed, does in fact offer or enable the desired result. Version 2 here, the next sort of rollout phase, is where you're making sure that that product is adoptable on a larger scale. And then when we get all the way out here, this is really where you are adding on. Maybe you're expanding the product. Maybe you're solving other problems. Maybe you are bringing on other user types. You're expanding your target market, whatever it may be. This is really just kind of an ongoing evolution cycle with your app. Now, the problem I see a lot of people running into when they're going through these phases is they never build up consistent, ongoing, growing momentum from this idea stage all the way through to the later evolution cycles with their apps. So what I see happening a lot is they'll have conversations with their target market to get some initial idea validation, but then they'll sort of leave it there. So they'll get the validation they need oftentimes, and then they'll move on. And when they move into that V1 stage where they're building the initial version of their product, those what would have been or what could have been prospective users, the people who helped you validate that idea, they're kind of left by the wayside. They've served their purpose, and now you yourself as the founder are moving on. And then what happens is when you create that version 1 product, and now you need to bring users on board to help you start validating the product itself, you have to come out and find another group of users, or really two things happen. Either you have to find another group of test users, or you have to come back to all the people who you contacted or who you had conversations with. Even if these were colleagues, close contacts, whoever they were, you have to come back and kind of spark those conversations again, and really just do a lot of backtracking to bring those people forward into the stage you're now currently in. Okay, so there's not a lot of forward momentum there. It's forward motion on your part, but you're not bringing anyone else along. And then I see the same thing happening in the next stage. So, okay, you get that initial product validation, and now you need to make that product more adoptable, maybe more available on a larger scale. So we're talking about further rounds of further waves of beta testing. And then you go out and search for a whole new group of beta testers. Or again, you backtrack to the people who you came to in V1 who did your testing. And depending on who you are and how quickly you're moving through these stages, I mean, we can see 6 months or more between some of these stages, a year or more between these stages where you're losing contact. And therefore, you're just never really building momentum on the user side, moving forward on the development side. But if you're launching an app, the user side has to be there as well. So the really simple, fast, easy tactic I want you to implement throughout all of these stages is just staying in touch with the people who you have conversations with or who you make touch points with. It's really easy. And right now you might be thinking, well, that's common sense. And that's because it is. But I'm saying it here to you today because I so often don't see this being implemented. I don't see those conversations being carried forward. I do see the big gaps and therefore the dips in momentum. And you want to try to follow this outward and upward trajectory through these stages with your app as closely as you can. But when you don't carry these people and these conversations forward and really just maintain the contact, then it's just a constant up, then down, then up, then down, then up, then down. And it's so hard to continue building momentum, especially when you're balancing two things, development and user outreach. So you really want to make these work together. So the easy thing you can do is continue the conversations. Continue the conversations. I can't emphasize this enough. This can happen through email. It can happen through phone, whatever is appropriate for you and for your app, however you're doing your outreach, whatever user acquisition channels you're going through. It can be through social media posts, but you just want to stay in contact with people so that you can take the people who helped you validate your idea, and potentially you can bring some of those forward and have them help you validate the version 1 of your product, and potentially bring those forward and have them help you validate version 2 and make sure that the product is adoptable, and then bring them forward and have them move into maybe your subscription plan up to your paid tiers. And so instead of having these gaps, what I want you to do is, when you have these initial conversations, no matter how casual they are, right, continue the conversations. And this can be updates. You can continue to ask people questions about the pain points. You can ask them for feedback on the direction in which you're going with the app. So what I see happening is, people want to have the conversation, and then the next time they come back to one of those prospective users or one of those early test users, they want to have something perfect. And so oftentimes that's what leads to that 6-month, 1-year time frame between some of these stages. But if you leave those big gaps, people are going to forget about you, right? It's hard to admit that, but it's just the reality, because your app is top of mind for you all the time. All the time. Chances are you've been thinking of this app idea for a year, 3 years, a decade, more. It's top of mind for you all the time. But for the people who you're having conversations with, it's not top of mind for them. So if you talk to them about it here, then once you're here, they're going to have forgotten about it. And once you're here, they're going to have forgotten about it again. It doesn't help you build momentum. So I want you to have some quick and easy conversations with people as you go. You want to stay top of mind. Okay. So that doesn't mean you're reaching out to these people and constantly just talking to them about your app. You can be reaching out to them and asking them about the pain points they're experiencing. People really like talking about themselves, and they like talking about their pain points. They're going to be more than happy to give you information. And that's going to serve two purposes. It's going to help you build your app even better, build a better solution because you have more insight into their pain points. And it's going to help you stay top of mind, which means you can stay on that green upward trajectory rather than the peaks and valleys that you see underneath that. Another thing it's going to do for you is create accountability. This is something that is usually not given enough focus, enough credit. But this kind of goes back to the fear that I see a lot of people having, where they don't have the conversations they need to in order to build that momentum, because they don't have a perfect product yet in their minds. And when they go back to people, they want to have that perfect product. Well, you're not aiming for perfect. You're aiming for momentum. You're aiming for progress. You're aiming for better. And when you have conversations throughout each of these stages and in between each of those stages, you're creating a ton of accountability for yourself, because you're telling people about what you're doing. You're telling people that you're going to help them, and they're going to want that help. They're going to be interested in that. And that's only going to drive the motivation higher for you, because if you're having conversations, you're getting feedback from prospective users. Well, naturally, you're going to want to finish your product, the version 1 of your product, the version 2, and just get it into their hands, right? So it's a great way to create accountability. Just have conversations with people, right? Now, having these conversations, there are 2 times where, I'm going to say 3 times, where I see it being avoided by people. 1, because they're just thinking product and not users, right? That's a simple one. We've already covered that. You have to think about both sides if you want to launch your app to users, right? But another reason is because they don't want the pressure, right? It can build pressure when you start talking about your app, because that makes it real. That makes it real. And so people are going to start asking you for updates. They're going to ask you how it's going. And if you don't have an answer for them that makes you feel good, that you're proud of, well, that's going to put pressure on you, isn't it? But that kind of goes back to this accountability that we were just talking about. It's not a bad thing. It's not a comfortable thing, that's for sure. But it's certainly not a bad thing, right? So the pressure, a lot of people avoid it because of that. And another reason why people sometimes avoid having these ongoing conversations is because they aren't actually seeking feedback. This kind of circles back up to the first point we talked about, which is thinking more product and less user. But if you're not actually seeking feedback constantly, ongoing, forever, for the lifetime of your app, from now until your app is however big you want it to be, if you're not seeking feedback, you're going to have a hard time ever getting to where you want to go. So if you're just thinking product and you're not thinking users, you'll have a hard time following this path here. If you're feeling the pressure, and that's why you're not, carrying those conversations forward and building the momentum, try as hard as you can to channel that pressure into positive energy. Take the nerves and turn them into motivation. It's not comfortable. That's normal. It's not going to be comfortable, right? But it's necessary if you really want to succeed with your app and with your business. Okay, so create that accountability for yourself and make sure you're always seeking feedback. That's what's going to help you build a better and better product. And you need that feedback in order to validate your idea, validate your product, make sure the product is adoptable, expand your product, and grow your business from there. So again, this is such a quick and easy tactic that you can implement to build that momentum from your idea stage all the way to your very first launch and beyond. This can be something that can take you 30 minutes once every other week. And by doing this, you can end up compressing your overall time frame from idea to launch by months, if not years. I've seen it happen before. So, take this easy step. Why wouldn't you? And help yourself with your first launch and beyond. Now, if you are moving through that stage, your idea stage to your first launch, and you want to make sure you have all the right components in place, because there's certainly more to it, right? We talked about the user side, the product side. We have a free extended training at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. And it'll help you make sure that you are creating the right product in these early stages as you go through them. And that's really important, because when you're getting the feedback that you will be seeking, you want to make sure it's feedback on the right things. Otherwise, you'll have a hard time moving up and out like we want to see you doing. So you can head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop to join in on that. All right, I hope you found this helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.